So, if you regularly haunt either of my channels, you know that I have been unemployed for quite a long time. I mean, for years at this point. I found ways of making it through things. My wife is a big supporter of mine, and that's extremely embarrassing to have to admit. But yeah, my wife has been gainfully employed in the job that she's been in for a while, and for the last couple of years, she's been supporting me while I try to figure out what the hell it is I'm going to do. Not because I'm lazy and not because I don't want to work or not because I don't want to earn money. It's just, I spent 20 years of my life doing the standard, you should be doing this and working for this and all it ever ended up getting me was, in the Marine Corps, I developed, medical issues, despite the fact that, the Marine Corps and I weren't really compatible. I'll be honest about that. It probably would have ended early anyway, but it ended before I was ready for it to be ended because I developed medical conditions that made it to where I couldn't stay in anymore. So either way, the way I ended up leaving the service was not optimal. And then, ever since then, I've had job after job, and each of those jobs were never really a long-term option because we just don't live in a world where long-term options are a thing anymore. Companies they've always been kind of out for number one, but there was always kind of a social pressure on companies to treat their employees, as investments rather than just a commodity to be used at their pleasure. And then when they're done with you, they just dump you off rather than trying to find something else productive for you to do. Because, companies have lost sight of the idea that human capital matters and, having loyal employees who will bend over backwards to help you actually does make your business better. They don't see it that way anymore. So here we are in this new world where, you're probably changing your job every couple of years. And as somebody who, especially right after I lost my previous job, so I've had several jobs over the last several years since I left the Marine Corps. I did 11 years as a United States Marine, and then after I got out of that, I've had several various different kinds of jobs, but the most important of them were construction administrative related jobs where I put my ability to do computer related work to help companies manage their documents and do administrative tasks and all that kind of stuff. I have never been fired from a job, ever, not once. And I have never quit a job except for one job, and that was only because I had a dispute with their method of payments and things like that. They did some pretty shady things when it came to bank accounts and things, and I wasn't comfortable with them anymore, so I left that job. But as far as me leaving jobs, I've actually never left a job because I quit, and I've never left a job because I was technically fired. I left because circumstances forced me out of whatever position I was in. So, I left the Marine Corps because I had a medical disability that I continue to live with today. My first construction administration job I left because the company was failing. They couldn't afford me anymore, and they laid me off, and they gave me a really nice bonus when I left. And then my last major administrative job that I did, I left because the job that they were doing was completed. All of the paperwork and everything was done for it. They were moving on to a different state, and I couldn't follow them, and so there was no more work for them to give me, and that was it. So I can't really blame the companies that I specifically have been working for the fact that my jobs have ended over the course of several years, but the effect is still the same. In the end, I have not been able to find a stable employer for the past 10 years or 12 or 13 years now, because we just don't live in that kind of a society anymore. Now, right after I was laid off from my last job, it wasn't really a layoff, really. It was just the job was over, and that was it. That was just the end of it. I started looking for more work, and I put out over 1,000 at least applications for various different jobs over the course of over a year of time. Like I was really putting out, I tried to put out at least, between 5 and 10 applications a day. And I know that, some people are going to try to say, well, you should be trying to tailor your applications to this and blah, 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 blah. But I think the fact that, there are so many fake job listings and there's so many job scams out there, more than at least twice I was in contact with people that were trying to scam me out of money. That's a real thing that does happen. There are people out there who are preying on you, trying to extract money from you in your most vulnerable state. So, the online job searching kind of thing is just super sketchy and it's really hard to deal with. And even if you put the time into, applying to a job and writing a detailed cover letter and making sure you're tailoring each application to the job that you're trying to do, the chances of you getting that job with all of the competition that's out there is so low that it's more or less better to just kind of, if you don't have any kind of an edge, it's better to just spread a wide net and cross your fingers. Because if you're using online platforms to try to get a job, the odds of actually getting anything are just, they're really like this. There is a sentiment online amongst people who, are trying to help people figure these things out, is that, it's personal connections with people that help you succeed. And it's knowing people and them being able to either hire you or refer you to somebody and give you a really good reference or anything like that, that makes finding a job reasonably feasible. And if you don't have any of those things, if you're like me and you're super antisocial and you don't like being around people and you don't really establish relationships and keep up on relationships and all those kinds of things, then you're going to have a hard time finding a job. Case in point. Now, all of that said, one of the things that I've been slowly shifting towards over the last couple of years, as I've been trying to grow a couple of YouTube channels at this point with very, very limited success, is that employment is just really not a secure situation as much as people like to think that it is. Most of us think that because we submit ourselves to an employment agreement with a business, that is somehow a safer option than going into business for ourselves, because they're going to provide us with a steady paycheck. They're going to provide us with gainful employment. We go into a job, we get a paycheck, everything's nice and hunky-dory until it's not, because employment is really no more secure than you going out and trying to start your own business or do your own thing and try to figure out what it is that you're going to do. The reality is that employment is for people who are unable to figure out what they can do and what they can market for other people and turn that into something that converts into cash for them. And that's why most of us end up doing that. It isn't necessarily that. I don't think there's too many people out there who really want to be employees. They just don't see any other options because either they're not creative enough to come up with an idea, or they don't recognize that they might have a skill set that allows them to market that and sell that, or they don't know how to market it. Maybe they recognize that they have something that's valuable, but they don't know how to market it. They don't know how to put it out there, or they're scared to put it out there because they're afraid of failure, or, and that's my biggest thing. Like, I know that I have skill sets that I could probably sell and be marketable, but every time I try to muster up that courage to go out there and try to do it, the negative voices inside my head go, it's just a waste of time. Or people will ask you to do whatever it is that you're going to do, and then the situation's going to go badly, and then everything's just going to be worse than it is if you just didn't try. And I think especially, my generation really struggles with that, because we were sold this rosy tinted view of the world. It didn't turn out that way, and now we're just kind of like, we're like Eeyore, just like, okay, whatever, I don't care. That's really the mentality that we do. But you have to stop for a second, and when you really think about these things, you start to understand that, starting your own thing, taking the risk of doing your own business is just as good as having some kind of gainful employment. Obviously, not everybody can be business owners. Every business is going to have some kind of employees. And not everybody even if everybody seriously wanted to do it, they wouldn't be able to, just because, of the reasons I mentioned before. The fact that, people are timid and, unable to jump out and take a risk. And I'm right there with you. I'm just as timid as all of you. And that's why I've spent 20 years of my life doing employment. And the only reason I even tried to start doing my own thing and start trying to make my own money, which I still haven't done yet. I'm still not there. The only reason I'm trying to do these things is because my employment options ran out. I haven't been able to find anything solid that meets the conditions of what I want for my life. And so if I want these things for my life, I have to try to go and make it myself. And the reality is that if you can figure out how to make that work, that is just as secure as an employment agreement with a big company, because that big company can fire you at any time and they don't have to give you any notice. Most of the time they don't. You walk in one day, you're laid off, and now you have to go find a job. That's not security. There's no security in that. And one of the things I'm slowly having to confront because I'm an older gentleman, I'm in my 40s at this point, the longer I'm unemployed, the less employable I am. Because once you start getting into the second half of your life, employers in general, even people who are older than me, are going to look at me as a potential liability because I'm older, because I am seen as not having the ability to learn new things. I am seen as not, especially if I don't already have whatever skill set they want, they're going to see me as somebody who is going to come in, be hard to train, be hard to integrate into their system, because I have the skill set that I have, and I use that as part of my experience base. B, as an older person, it's just harder for me to learn new things. As you age, it becomes harder and harder for you to integrate new thoughts and processes and all of that stuff into the way that you're doing things. And then C, kind of the more evil side of things, I am old enough and experienced enough to know bullshit when I see it. And I'm going to say something about it because now I have the confidence to know, oh no, that is bullshit. I'm not just seeing it. That's actually bullshit. I've seen enough in my life to identify bullshit. So I see the bullshit and I'm not going to put up with it. Whereas somebody who's in their early 20s doesn't really have the knowledge and experience and confidence to be able to see that and identify it. And companies would much rather have somebody who's young and dumb and, just going to do what they're told. So the older I get, the harder it's going to be for me to actually find a job. And even if I do find a job, if that job doesn't take me in a direction that I want to go, then that job isn't really serving me, is it? It's just another way of, delaying my life while I service the needs that I have right now, which, sometimes you have to do that. But I don't think any of us would prefer it. Now, knowing that I really need to figure out some kind of way of making my own money doesn't really help me very much, because I fall into that category of people who I have no idea what to market myself as or for, or what to do that would be something that enough people would want to pay me for to accomplish whatever it is that I could provide them. And that's why, I think that's why a lot of us who have the entrepreneurial desire but don't necessarily do anything with it, it's because we don't know what to do. We don't know what the market needs are, really. There's a lot of information out there, but it doesn't really help you fixate in on something specific. And so, there's a peculiar mix of traits of successful entrepreneurs where not only do they have the desire to be their own boss, but they also have an inherent ability to see needs in the marketplace, identify a need that they could potentially fill, and then go after it because, and I think that I have the entrepreneurial desire because I've always hated having a boss. And I also have the ability to go after and get shit done. I'm missing that piece in the middle where I'm able to identify things that are in the market that, are needed, and then take my own skill set and figure out how to satisfy those needs, or come up with an idea to satisfy those needs that I feel like I'm capable of doing. I think that's where most entrepreneurial minded people end up getting stuck, because it's easy to hate going into an office every day, and it's easy to think, oh man, if I could figure out a way to do my own job, I could be so successful. It's that part in the middle. It's always what is it about everything in life where there's it's easy to identify the starting point and the ending point. It's always the middle. It's always the middle bit that's just the really hard thing to figure out. So, I'd love to figure out this YouTube thing that I've been doing. That's a long shot, pie in the sky hope that maybe I'll grow to the point where, I can get some sponsors and I'm making enough ad revenue and all of those things to live the kind of comfortable life I'm hoping to get while being able to work remotely and on my own and travel and do all these things that I want to do, right? But I don't have any idea. I have the desire to do it, and I know I could do it if I could figure out something that I had the confidence in being able to do it. It's just figuring out what the hell that is. I don't know. And the problem, the problem is that we're all on our own at the end of the day, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur or you're an employee, you're basically on your own, unless you happen to have a group of real people who have real experience who can point you in the right direction. Most of us are browsing the internet trying to find, some kind of inspirations or ideas or thought processes or whatever that are going to help us get over that middle part that I'm talking about. But almost all of that is just noise. It's just, it's other people trying to do the same thing as the job scams of just putting information out there and hoping that it gets you to watch long enough that they can either get ad revenue out of it, or you buy a course, or you put money into something that doesn't really help you. It just helps them, right? And if you keep that in mind, if you keep in mind the idea that you're on your own, unless you can find real people to, hook up with that will help you and will actually, advance you towards the desires that you're looking for, you're going to be stuck like me, like I have been for a very long time. And it's actually really hard to pull yourself out of that, because yeah, you can just say, well, find some people to hook up with that can help you out. Well, yeah, that's easier said than done. Like, especially, it's easy to talk to people online. It's very hard to get to the point where you trust them enough to take a risk to go after something. Like, you can't just join a group and have chats with people that you don't know, and then they tell you to do something and you're like, okay, I'll go do. That doesn't really work. Like, that's not really feasible. You need to have people in your life that have the experience, not necessarily in whatever it is that you want to do, but at least have experience figuring out how to identify the needs that the market has, so that you can select from the buffet of options that are out there for you to try to satisfy. And it requires people. And if you're antisocial, if you're extremely antisocial like me, like, I know it doesn't seem like it on camera because I'm able to get on here and like be a person and talk to you guys as my audience and all of that stuff, but I don't like being around people. I'm in my trailer by myself. My wife is at work. My wife is antisocial like me. We don't like hanging out with people. That makes it really hard to do anything. So if you are antisocial in any way, my recommendation for you is maybe see if you can try to figure out a way out of that, so that you can hopefully start networking with people. Because networking, especially in this day of like internet sludge and everything that's just making it impossible. The internet was supposed to connect us all and make all our lives better. All it did was just fill our lives with junk. And networking and real people and real relationships are far more important today than they even were back in the 60s, because the internet gives us this false hope. And if you don't have a network of people you can rely on to help you cut through the BS, you're even more lost than just having to look through want ads in the newspaper back in the day. It's just the way it is. So my message today is not necessarily to leave you with a sense of doom and gloom. It's to provide you with an action plan for the future that I'm probably not going to implement myself, because I am so antisocial at this point that the idea of being around people just irritates the hell out of me. But I'm going to tell you what to do, because it is the right answer regardless of whether I do it or not. If you are struggling and you need to find a pathway forward through the future, you need to find a group of real people that you can go and hang out with and spend time with and build trust with, who have access to not necessarily resources, but at least information that can help you move in the direction you want to go. In this day that we live in, that is really the only way forward. And it's the way it's always been. It hasn't changed over time. It's just this modern internet age we live in has highlighted the importance of not allowing yourself to become so antisocial that you lock yourself into a life that just you can't get out of. And that's just kind of it. So hopefully, as somewhat negative as all of that sounded, there is a positive message in there. Try to take that, implement it into your life, and go out and do something that makes your life better. And that's all I got to say. So thanks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. And then head over to the gaming channel if you like gaming content, and for whatever reason this video appealed to you. I have a couple thousand videos over there already for that. So go check that out. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.